So, hello everyone, and welcome to Voices in Health and Wellness. This is where we talk with forward-thinking leaders shaping the future of health, mental well-being, and human performance. I'm your host, Dr. Andrew Greenland, and today we have Dr. Mike Brooks joining us, a nationally recognized psychologist, author of Tech Generation, Raising Balanced Kids in a Hyper-Connected World, and a passionate voice on how technology and society are colliding with our mental health. He spent years exploring how our modern environment interacts with the way we're wired as humans and what we can do about it. So, Mike, first off, welcome and thank you very much for joining us. Where are you today, by the way?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Wonderful. Probably hotter than where we are in London, but
it's pretty hot. I guess it's 40, maybe 45 Celsius here. What does that translate? I don't know. It's 95 to 100 degrees. So
the very red face on the little emoticon on Apple phone, I think, would be the appropriate for that.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So let's kick off. So for listeners that may not know your work, how do you describe what you do and the mission that drives you?
Well, that's a great organizing question, and some of that's been evolving. But I guess I've always been interested in happiness, well-being, and also the big questions of life, like how do we live in this world? I'm a longtime seeker, scientifically and spiritually. And historically, those used to be at odds, fighting, and I've kind of blended them over time and kind of made peace within myself. And I've loved technology from the get-go. So as a little kid, my generation ushered in the video game era, and the birth of the internet and all that stuff was happening. Personal computers. And I carried this on in my blending psychology, which I had a love, philosophy, psychology, well-being with technology. I did my dissertation research on the effect of video game violence on kids. And as I followed, that used to be the big concern. And then as things moved, I actually started a group practice in 2007 called the Austin Psychology and Assessment Center. And what happened was, to go speak to people, I was like, well, I'll speak about my dissertation in the video game violence. But as time went on, everything shifted to internet addiction and then social media and smartphone addiction. So I started speaking on that. One thing led to another, and I wrote a book on it, and with my good friend and colleague, John Lasser, who's also a psychologist. And that was with Oxford University Press in 2018. And I continued to write and present on that. COVID hit, which kind of like, I really wanted, and simultaneously seeing what's going on in the world politically has greatly concerned me, like the tribalism. Like the everybody's on their screens, the hate, the outrage, the toxicity, the brain rot, the porn, it's like on. And I'm seeing all this, and I'm echo chambers, filter bubbles. And I'm like, we're devolving into tribalism, and the screens are part of that. And then AI hit, and I actually went through absolute existential terror when AI came out. Like I was getting an hour and a half of sleep a night, and I explored my fears of AI with AI, which confirmed my fears of AI. But then I didn't stop there. I was like, well, what do we do about it? And I absolutely love AI. And I use like 5 models at once now. And I just started using GPT-5, just dropped. So I'm like, I have a YouTube channel, Talking with Tomorrow, where I talk to the AIs about like real world problems. And I'm like, why don't we just use AI to solve our real world problems? Like, whatever it is, whether it's climate change or immigration or personally, I'm having a problem. What can I do about this? And they're great at it. It's all about asking the right questions. Do we want to create AI chatbots to addict kids to porn and have algorithms, even better algorithms to addict people to TikTok and, make us buy crap we don't need? Or we could use it to help solve homelessness, world hunger, what's going on in the Middle East. It's like, why don't we just use it to solve this power, that we have? It's always about us, kind of a reflection Our technologies are a mirror and a lens, so they both reflect and magnify the best or worst in us. And I'm like, why don't we just have it magnify the best in us? Why don't we just use it to solve and quit fighting and waste all our energy hating one another? So that led me to the One Unity Project, which is a nonprofit. Well, it's like in status of review, but for final approval. But the idea is kind of a best of both worlds. I don't think humanity is going to be replaced by AI at all. In fact, using it more gives me more hope for humanity because I see all the limitations of it. But when you combine the best that humanity has to offer with the best of AIs, we kind of yin yang offset each other's weaknesses and augment each other's strengths. So as I was working with it, that's the experience I was having. And I was like, this could be fantastic. All we have to do is ask the right questions, you know? So that's what I'm devoted to. And that's the birth of the One Unity Project, the best of both worlds, where we just take the best that humanity has to offer, best of technology and AI, and use it to solve our problems, because we cannot solve our collective problems. We cannot solve our collective problems using divided approaches in an interconnected world. That's amazing. Inherently impossible. So we have to, these are collective action problems and they require us working together. So that's what I'm on now. And I hope that was a pretty good summary. And that's where, and seeing my clients, what I realized with that is like what we're suffering from is, I call it accelerating evolutionary mismatch. So the famous Harvard biologist E.O. Wilson, this has been kind of my foundational thing that it was in my book to some extent, but now it's even more so, is he said, the Harvard biologist, the real problem of humanity is the following. We have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. So there's a fundamental mismatch between our evolutionary heritage and the world we've constructed for ourselves. So currently, for instance, we live about 70%, depending on 50 to 70% of our waking hours are spent on a screen of one form or another, when for 99.9999% of our evolutionary history, it was zero. That is a huge shift. So we're all experiencing a false sense of normalcy in this world. We think this is normal, but we need to look at our lives through ancient eyes. And if we look at our world through ancient eyes, the world we're living in is absolutely bananas. If you dropped a Neanderthal in the middle of Times Square, I mean, basically that's what's happening at some primitive level of our brains, is a very scared, screaming monkey that's like overwhelmed by the world we live in. But we're so adaptive that we think this is normal when it is not. We need to think in an evolutionary timeline. So the lives we're living are fundamentally mismatched with our evolutionary heritage, and that is the root of our suffering. All the other things we're treating are symptoms, and until we fix the mismatch, technological progress does not progress at a linear way biologically. We evolve at a very different rate than technology. And technology evolves at an exponential rate. And now we have AI, and it's like going to be smarter than us within probably 3 to 5 years, or what the prediction markets have, that we will no longer be the most intelligent species on the planet within a handful of years. And that's a big deal. So we need to collectively, humanity needs to figure out how to deal with that, because that's a shared problem. So that's pretty much it. That's what I'm working on.
Amazing. Mike, so you've clearly got a unique blend of psychology, writing, and public speaking expertise. Tell me a little bit about your practice, because obviously you do see clients and patients.
Yes.
Give me some sense of what you're seeing, what you kind of how your work pans out, the kind of people that you're seeing, what are you working on, and how the stuff you've just been talking about is impacting what's coming through your door.
Yeah, and it's a great question because they're related. Like my practice, what I was seeing in, do you prefer Dr. Greenland or Andrew?
Andrew, it's very informal on this call.
Andrew,
We're
okay.
both
And I'm
colleagues. So.
Mike. Yeah, yeah. Uh, when I've been working with clients, like the problems they're having, and based on what I was understanding about evolutionary psychology and evolutionary biology, and this mismatch, is that people were living lives that we're so busy on this treadmill of life that keeps speeding up that we don't have time to do the very things that ultimately make us happy. And I know you're into a more holistic, and what I realized is what makes us happy. The foundations of happiness are baked into our DNA and our evolutionary heritage. We need basically 5 things are foundational. And if we don't have those pieces in place, all the rest isn't going to make much difference because we don't have the fundamentals. And that's good sleep, right? We got physical movement, embodied interaction with our environment. You got exercise, like you're going to need physical exertion, time in nature, and in-person social interaction. Actually, I think exercise and physical are combined, and nutrition would be the other. So you got sleep, physical movement, exercise, good nutrition, time in nature, and in-person social interaction. So those are the 5 factors, and now they're being encroached upon, but because the world now is so we're intertwined with our technologies, and we're living like these screen-based lives. And I'll give an example that hopefully your listeners will understand and it'll resonate with them. Is here's how crazy the world we live in is. When I was growing up, and probably you too, Andrew, you punished kids by sending them to their room, and now you punish them by kicking them off their screens and sending them outside. That is such a seismic shift in the way we relate to the world. I don't think enough people appreciate it, although they sense it on some level at the same time. So like when we bemoan, oh, I'm suffering a first world problem. Oh, I didn't get enough Instagram followers or whatever it is, a first world problem. We have wrongfully trivialized first world problems, because guess what problem our evolutionary ancestors never faced? Not once a first world problem. So we didn't evolve to solve the very problems our lives are populated with today. All first world problems, and they're like puzzles that our brains can't solve because our lives historically they were simple but brutal. Get food, water, shelter, safety, watch out for predators, have babies, take care of your children. That was it. You didn't have like my dream job, and I got to move away from my family to go to the university that I'd like to go to. And it's like, we never left our families. We think that's normal to leave our families. No, it's not. It's horrible. We're supposed to be in connection with our close friends and family every day. So I'm seeing like the teenagers, I work with teens and up in individual therapy. And what I'm teaching them is this stuff about evolutionary mismatch. And the thing is, people wrongfully blame themselves. What's wrong with me that I can't handle this? What's wrong with me? Here, I want to give everyone listening, you get a big get out of jail free card. Okay. It's not what's wrong with you. It's what's wrong with our world. We've created a crazy world, and now it's driving us all a little crazy. Why do we have a loneliness epidemic when we're more connected than ever? We're becoming disconnected, from what truly matters. And I think it's a travesty. And I think Titanic humanity is accelerating into icy waters right now, and we need to make a course correction because we're going down the wrong path and we're going way too fast. We're adaptive, but we have our limits. So I think we're reaching them right now. That's why depression's going up, anxiety, you have obesity epidemic, one thing, tribalism, polarization's increased. So I'm like, well, I don't know that I can do anything about it, but Gandhi taught me to be the change I wish to see in the world. And I'm like, well, I'm 56 years old. I'm just going to go out in the world and say something absolutely crazy, Andrew. Here it is. We need to work together. How about that? We need to stop fighting and work together.
Brilliant. So your book, Tech Generation, which you've mentioned, tackles raising kids in a hyper-connected world. Really interested to know, how has the conversation evolved since that book has come out?
Oh, what a stupendous question. I've had a few epiphanies, and I wish they were in the book, and I didn't realize them till afterwards. I mean, one, I didn't even name evolutionary mismatch. I described it, but I didn't know the name of what I was. I feel very embarrassed. Right after I got it like published, I was like, oh, there's. So that was one. But what I realized is a couple things. Actually, in the research literature, and you might, I don't know if you read Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, but he caused a pretty big splash with his book. But in the research, there's quite a big debate of how harmful screens are to young people and stuff. It's actually not as clear cut as you might think, or as much as the headlines would have us believe. But as I kept trying to understand what is at the heart of it, what I realized is we can't separate an individual's screen use from the world that's been transformed by them. So look, we're like fish swimming in polluted water right now, and trying to do in the social sciences, we're trying to capture how much Instagram affects a teenager, or Fortnite, a video game, or a smartphone. But our whole lives are screen-based now. It's not, you can't separate out. It's so hard. Most of the research associating screen time with negative health effects, they use self-reported screen time. And guess what they found is a horrible measure of screen time? Self-report. So you have a huge body of research on self-reported screen time, but all the wars over, how much is it affecting us? It's missing this greater point of that it's like we're breathing Beijing air, and we're like coughing and stuff and going, man, I've got these respiratory problems, but, I guess I'll have to see what medicines to take. And it's like, well, why you're having respiratory problems? You're breathing Beijing air. It's, super polluted. And that's why you're suffering. And you don't even know it because you've adapted to it and you think it's normal. And until you go to clean Colorado air and you breathe it in, or somewhere in the Alps, and you're like, whoa. And you're like, we don't know what we don't know. We're so adaptive that we think these things we're experiencing are normal. Like, our kids growing up do not know the freedom from cell phones. They don't know it. They sell us that we've got all these fun things we can do, and we think it's freedom. And it's like, no, we're tethered to them. We're shackled to our phones. We can't get away from them. Even when they're not in our hands, we're thinking of them. And our kids, they don't know the freedom of just going outside without having to, do a selfie or check something constantly. And I'm like, oh, this is so horrible. So it's like, at this environmental level, the whole structure of our society has changed. And I think we need to remember and reconnect with what truly matters. Because at the heart of it, we actually know that our greatest happiness is in our social relationships. No one on their deathbed's going to say, if only I had been on TikTok just a little bit longer. I wasted my life traveling with family and friends and seeing the world, but I could have been on TikTok more. No one's going to do that. No one is. We all know that. Our happiest moment, like if I ask you, Andrew, what are some of your happiest moments in life? What are they? What comes to mind?
family and friends,
Yep, that's
connection.
it.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
right. That's what's important. Once we meet our basic needs, air, food, water, those sleep, then it's relationships are the heart of our happiness. And the research on that is very physical and mental health. And those were meant to be in person, outside in nature, and we're not doing it, and then we wonder why we're suffering. It's as plain as the nose on our face. We already know it. This isn't right. We're not living right. And I think we need to reorient. We need to hit the reset button, on this. It's systemic and it's societal. We can't just fix this one little thing here or there. We need to restructure society so that we can reconnect with what truly matters, how we naturally thrive. We've lost connection with how we naturally thrive. So that's what I'm seeing in my practice. And it's like now our world's, it's so much, if you're familiar with game theory, like you have to keep up with everyone else. So, well, I need to get a good score on my, college entrance exam. So I got to study, hours, and I need to get a certain grade point average to get in the elite university. And if I don't do that, and I need to pad my application. So I'm in student organizations and I'm doing sports and I'm doing this. And it's like, man, we're not just getting to connect in the ways that we need to be healthy and happy. And it's on a fundamental level. And we're wondering why. And it's like, you're a doctor, if we just treat the symptoms, if someone has strep throat and you give them cough and cold relief over the counter medicine, it might reduce their symptoms, but they still have strep throat and they're going to suffer mightily. And it could go really dark if they don't get to the heart of the problem. And that's what I'm seeing is we're treating all the symptoms, but we're not getting to the heart of the problem, to the root of the problem. And the root of our problem is in our evolutionary roots and in evolutionary mismatch.
Amazing. So, you've talked about the shifts in technology and society that you're seeing that most concern you, but do you see any positive trends, whether it be tools, habits, or cultural shifts that give you hope that we can adapt?
Oh, man, you ask good questions. I love it. You just teed is actually, yes, I went from this despair, oh my God, we're going to hell in a handbasket, to as I worked with AI models, and the greatest irony in perhaps human history is, what if we could use AI to help solve the very problem it's exacerbating? Because it'll answer any question that we have. And I started doing that with AIs, and I'm seeing other people do it. Why don't we just, they'll say, how do we settle an argument? Let's ask ChatGPT. Okay, well, what are we getting at? Jesus said, seek and ye shall find, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set us free. What is the Chinese AI model's name? DeepSeek. What are we seeking? Truth, answers. You can replace the truth sets us free with reality sets us free. Now a spiritual truth becomes a scientific one. It's that easy. Replace one word. And this is a deep teaching of Buddhism too, is that suffering comes from a misperception of reality. And our misperception is this is the world we're supposed to live in. And it's like we've forgotten who we are. And AI can help us outside of the tribalism, ego, and the attention economy. We can seek answers with AI. And now we can't believe everything it says. That's why I vet everything. Truth is not afraid of scrutiny. Truth isn't afraid of the light because it is the light. So, any idea I come up with, AIs can be too sycophantic where they, oh, you're brilliant. Oh, yeah, I got great ideas. And it's like, well, it doesn't do me any good if my dumb idea is called a brilliant idea by an AI, and then I go follow my dumb idea. That's a disservice to me. So you got to have, I call it an AI roundtable, and I vet everything, and I use human input. So I use the best of both worlds, And I find all the time working with AI, how much it brings out the best in me and creates better ideas in me. And I catch things that even 5 AI models miss. And I'll say, oh, here's something. And they all go, oh my God, can't believe we missed that. And I'm like, this is great. It's interactive. And many people are finding this same way in medicine, right? Breakthroughs in medicine and diagnosis is just, let's diagnose and treat the illness, right? You can just say, what is society's diagnosis? What's the treatment? Why are we suffering? And when we look at that, we ask AIs, why am I suffering in my life? Why are we on a systemic level suffering? Why don't we use AI to help us be happier and reduce our suffering and improve our well-being? It's right there. All we have to do is ask the questions. And I see people starting to ask the questions. I see a lot of people like me out there. So that's what gives me hope, is like these conversations. These give me hope. A person like you willing to open their mind and open up the channel to someone like me, and the listeners out there right now who are like going, does this connect with you? Does it make sense? Is why not just use AI to solve any problem, because it's there to help us. It doesn't have to be sentient. It doesn't have to be conscious to help us expand ours. So that's what it's like. A lot of people are starting to do that and break through limitations that they used to have. But some people are going down rabbit holes. So you got to be careful, but I think this is the direction I'm starting to see things move toward. So that gives me great hope for the future, because I think if we partner, with AI as our assistant and just work together, I mean, it's at our fingertips to solve these problems. And I think we could, working together, create a world that not even John Lennon could imagine.
Amazing. So in your practice, what's working well right now when it comes to supporting mental well-being in your patients?
Helping them here's what I am seeing. And this, again, a great question, and one that I didn't quite put in my book and emphasize enough, is prioritizing the basics first. Is meet your needs first. It's an afterthought for most people. Oh, I meant to go to the gym, but I didn't have time to squeeze it in today. I meant to get to sleep earlier, but I was binge watching a show, or I was working, or whatever it is. And it's like, we've got to prioritize those basics. If we do not, we will not be happy. Suffering is the message to tell us that we're not meeting our needs well. It's a messenger, and we got to listen to what it's saying. And it's telling us all the time, our suffering is telling us we're not prioritizing things right. And so that's where we should start every day, a checklist. How's my sleep, my exercise and physical activity, my nutrition, time in nature, and then in-person social interactions? Give yourself a scorecard every day, but make those, schedule life around those 5. Don't do it backwards. Don't try to squeeze them in, because they are foundational. And that's what it's like, it's right there. And on some level, we know it. We all know if we don't get enough sleep, we feel like crap the next day. If we drink too much, if we eat too much of the wrong foods, and what it feels like. How many people, after they exercise, here's the truth everyone knows. I'll ask all listeners here, and you already know the answer. How many of you have struggled sometime to go to the gym or work out, and you had to kind of talk yourself into it, or, push yourself? How many of you at the end of the day go, gosh, I wish I wouldn't have talked myself into exercising. I really regret exercising today. And then for the flip, how many of you say, man, I'm glad I got a good workout in. At least I got that in today. And you're like, yes, I did it. We all know the truth. Or a time in nature, or that time with the friend that you spent, having coffee or a beer or whatever, and you went out instead of like just watching the tube Isn't that what you call it? There is at the tube, the telly, the tube. But we know those things, so we need to prioritize those. Is in the in-person social relationships, knowing that once we meet those basic needs, prioritize in-person social relationships. So that's what I'm trying to tell my clients. The trouble is the world isn't set up for us. It's not conducive to living a healthy and happy life because we get sucked into our screens. It's so screen based, and the attention economy doesn't give a rat's behind about us being happy, any more than McDonald's doesn't care about our waistline, any more than the attention economy cares about our mental health. They're just, it's just the clicks, the algorithms, what gets the money, what gets the eyeballs. So the most powerful force in the known universe, our focused human attention, gets taken from us and basically sold to the highest bidder, the most powerful force of the known universe. And instead of focusing on what matters, we're focusing on what makes them money, because they've used these algorithms to hook us, the dopamine, the clickbait, just one thing after all the hooks that they put in there that play upon the primitive areas of our brain. It makes it very, very difficult to resist the call of the siren here. So that's what we're faced with. And so I think one thing that resonates with people, Andrew, is when anyone goes to see a therapist, one of the questions is, what's wrong with me? Why am I suffering? And now what I have found so liberating from my clients is there's nothing wrong with you. In fact, if you weren't suffering, that would be wrong with you. It's like putting your hand on a hot stove and wondering why it burns your hand. Well, it's on a hot stove. Your hand's not supposed to be on a hot stove. And that's what the pain is telling you. The suffering is telling us that we're living incongruently with what truly makes us happy, but we end up blaming ourselves or those dreaded other people for ruining our lives. That other if only those are bad people, and if we vanquish them, then all will be right in the world. And it's like the tribalism, we devolve into there. But there's nothing wrong with any of you listeners. There's nothing wrong with us. What's wrong is the world. And if we start to reorient to what truly matters and prioritize it, that's what I'd say. All your listeners, prioritize what truly matters. And what truly matters if you ask within. Just think about, when am I happiest? When am I unhappiest? Happiness is basically relationships going well. Unhappiness, relationships not going well, once we meet our basic needs. And so if we reorient, prioritize, and reconnect with what truly matters, I think that's the pathway to happiness and well-being. And each of us can make that choice. And AI can help us. AI can help us. That's the other.
Absolutely. Are there any mental health needs you think are still being overlooked in public policy or in the wider wellness industry in which we work?
I would say, is this what I'm telling now needs to be a starting point for every conversation. Every MD is, we need to understand evolutionary mismatch. I mean, like repetitive stress or necks, chiropractors. I mean, the way we sit all day long is not good for us, all these things. And instead of treating the symptoms, people need to have a framework for understanding the nature of the illness, because the understanding of what's fundamentally wrong illuminates the path forward. So that's what I'd say, is that's the conversation we need to be having worldwide at all levels. Is start, and I'd say all MDs start with teaching your patients about this evolutionary mismatch. And you can ask an AI about it. And I've done it with blind AI models. If you ask listeners, ask this question to any AI model: what is the most important question humanity needs to ask right now. Ask that question to any AI model. That question led me 5 different AI models blind, meaning they don't know me. I've asked them blind. They all landed on evolutionary mismatch as the problem. The convergence was like 90 to 95%. All the AI models understand this. All you have to do is ask the question. And that led me to ask what I call the one question. I have a big article coming out next week on this that I've basically a lifetime in the making. And it led me to take that evolutionary mismatch problem, and I took it to all the AIs and I said, what's the best way to phrase this so that people will understand it? And Andrew, we'll test it right now because you haven't heard it. And I want to see if this makes sense to you. Okay. The one question that after I roundtabled what the most important question is, and I actually got this from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Are you familiar with that story?
Vaguely, I don't know. I do know of it. I haven't read it in
I'll tell. It's all related. Here, I'll tell the quick story, and it's a spoiler alert. Great book, and I think he was a Brit who wrote it. Hitchhiker's Douglas Adams, and in it, this alien race created this supercomputer, Deep Thought, and they gave it this one question to answer. Is said, "What is the answer to life, the universe, and everything?" And it took Deep Thought 1,000,000 years or something. It's like, okay, I'm gonna answer this one question that you asked. And so it took 1,000,000 years, and basically a whole cult developed, waiting for the answer to the greatest question. And finally it comes online, and Deep Thought is like, well, I have the answer. And they're like, yay. And it said, but I don't think you're gonna like it. And they're like, what? No, tell us it. And he's like, really, I don't think you're going to like the answer. And it's like, oh, well, tell us. And he goes, okay, well, I'll tell you. The answer to life, the universe, and everything is 42. 42. So, but that got me thinking. So then the joke was they didn't ask the right question. That's what Deep Thought said. It's like, well, you didn't ask the right question, but the answer is 42. And they were like, well, what's the right question? It's like, well, that'll take another 1,000,000 years for me to answer. And I'm like, wait a second, we have AI. We can just ask AI. So that's it. What's the most important question for humanity to ask right now? They all said 5 models, some version of evolutionary mismatch. Then I did another blind review roundtable, and I asked, what's the best way to phrase it? And here's the way they all converged on, this is the best phrasing of the one question. And I call it the one question we need to ask to save humanity. So that's it. The one question we need to ask to save humanity. And then I want you to judge it as a fellow human being. You ready for this, Andrew? You're going to be like the AIs. You're a smart guy, and this is what you do. How do we reshape our world to reconnect human beings with how we naturally thrive?
Love it.
I mean, right? How do we reshape our world to reconnect human beings with how we naturally thrive? And I was like, oh, that's a juicy question. Now we don't have to wait 1,000,000 years. We can ask not just one AI, ask 5, and they will tell you. And I had them rate it 1 to 10. How critical is this? They all rated it a 9 to 10, blind ratings. They said it's absolutely urgent that we answer this question for humanity's future. So I was like, well, I'm going to put that out into the universe. And Andrew, this is the first show I've been on to put it out into the universe. So, I feel
you
very—
heard it here first.
Yeah. You'll be hearing more of it. And I want every listener, go ahead and ask any AI model what is the most important question to ask that humanity needs to ask right now. And that led me to this one version of this question of how do we reshape our world to reconnect human beings with how we naturally thrive, and say, AI, give me your honest, objective answer to this question, and then drop it and see what happens. And you will see. Rate it's on 1 to 10 in importance. So that's where I'm at. And I think that's where healthcare needs to start, is the foundation. And then everything springs forth from there. You have the home base. How are you doing on these 5 items? And yes, we have real world problems, but if we don't meet those needs, we're not going to be able to attend to the real world problems, the day-to-day stuff, if we haven't met our needs. And so that's the starting point. I think I think humanity needs to have a very serious conversation and ask the one question, because if we don't answer that, we're heading down the wrong path right now.
Mike, on that note, I'm going to thank you very much for your time. It's been a really, really fascinating discussion, very, very deep and meaningful. I'm very happy to put the information about your book and anything else you'd like in the bio, so anybody listening to this can obviously tap into your resources. But I do appreciate your time. It's been really interesting, and this is going to relate to this is going to resonate with so many people.
Yeah,
really, really, really good listening. So I really thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners, because I think you said this, Andrew, is that it'll resonate with people, because I think on some level, Andrew, we already know this. Everybody knows it on some level, that this isn't right the way we're living, and we need to do things differently. So thanks so much for this opportunity. And I see you ask really good questions too. You said you're like, well, I'm going to make this about you. So you just and then your questions is like, I want to support you also in this, and I will link this interview. I will embed it in my article. So I'll make sure that people can get to you, because I can see the good work you're doing in the world and trying to make a difference.
Amazing. Thank you, Mike. I'm going to
yeah.